For today's meditation, we are reading from 1 Samuel chapter 22, verses 6 to 19. Now Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men who were with him. Saul was sitting at Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on the height with his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. And Saul said to his servants who stood about him, Hear now, O people of Benjamin, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards? And will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? That all of you have conspired against me. No one discloses to me when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse. None of you is sorry for me or discloses to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait as at this day. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who stood by the servants of Saul, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent to summon Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house. The priests who were at Nob, and all of them came to the king. And Saul said, Hear now, son of Ahitub. And he answered, Here I am, my lord. And Saul said to him, Why have you conspired against me, you, the son of Jesse, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and inquired of God for him, so that he has risen against me to lie in wait, as at this day? Then Ahimelech answered the king, And who among all your servants is so faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law and captain over your bodyguard, and honored in your house? Is today the first time that I have inquired of God for him? No. Let not the king impute anything to his servant or to all the house of my father, for your servant has known nothing of all this, much or little. And the king said, You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house. And the king said to the guard who stood about him, Turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and they knew that he fled and did not disclose it to me. But the servants of the king would not put out their hand to strike the priests of the Lord. Then the king said to Doeg, You turn and strike the priests. And Doeg the Edomite turned and struck down the priests, and he killed on that day 85 persons who wore the linen ephod. And Nob, the city of the priest, he put to the sword, both man and woman, child and infant, ox, donkey, and sheep, he put to the sword. David has become a leader in exile. His band is made up of all those who in debt, discontented, and distressed. These men were to become some of the mighty men of David, doing wondrous deeds later. How this reminds us of who we are when we came to the Lord. We were not deserving of honor. We were servants of sin, owing a debt of death. We were discontented and distressed under the service of sin. Under the anointed of the Lord, they are transformed into faithful warriors for the Lord. Saul was wallowing in self-pity when he was asked about the whereabouts of David and letting him know of his deeds. He said, None of you is sorry for me or discloses to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait as at this day. This was an outright lie. Jonathan is among the most upright and honorable sons of whom we read in the scriptures. Far from stirring up David against his father Saul to lie in wait for his death, he risked his life to fight alongside Saul many times, and finally fell at his side in the final battle against the Philistines. It was not that he was treacherous to his father, but that he was loyal to his friend David, that caused his father to speak vile words about him. The truth was that Saul was conspiring against David and lying in wait to kill him. It was he who was chasing David and not the other way around. The questions of Saul artfully mixed truth with a lie. For this reason, all his listeners refused to answer him, lest they be party to the king's lies. It was Doeg the Edomite who told Saul about king's meeting with Ahimelech the priest. His words were poisonous and deceitful, as David describes in a psalm based on this painful incident. He says in Psalms 52, "Why do you boast of evil, O mighty man? The steadfast love of God endures all the day. Your tongue plots destruction like a sharp razor, you worker of deceit. You love evil more than good, and lying more than speaking what is right. You love all words that devour, a deceitful tongue." Though Doeg said nothing but the truth technically, it was a malicious and blatant lie nonetheless. First of all, even though it was a fact that David had come to Ahimelech and the latter had inquired of the Lord for him, provided provisions for him and for his men, and equipped him with the sword of Goliath the Philistine, it was not to lie in wait for the king, as Doeg very well knew. Ahimelech thought that David was on a secret mission for Saul and did everything in his power to help David, not knowing what was going on in Saul's heart. This was all the more believable as David was the king's son-in-law and the captain of king's guard, as well as faithful and beloved as king's servant. But Doeg's answer to Saul's question presented this innocent response as if it was part of a conspiracy against Saul. This brought about the complete murder of Ahimelech and his clan. In his conversation with Saul, Ahimelech tried to defend his innocence in these very terms. He reminded the king that he was habitually approached by David to inquire of the Lord whenever he went out to war. It was no new or unusual request, but Saul was in no mood to listen to reason. This reflects his true attitude of rebellion and stubbornness against the Lord, which comes into the open in his encounter with the Lord's anointed priest. It reminds us of Cain, who showed similar anger and jealousy, resulting in the murder of his righteous brother Abel, which was really an act of willful resistance to and rebellion against the Lord. This is one of the worst acts in the life of Saul. His malice was implacable and his wrath was cruel. This mass murder cannot be justified by any motive of justice or policy. It was harshly pronounced and rashly executed without any pause or deliberation, without any remorse or regret. To their credit, Saul's servants feared God and were not afraid of the king's wrath. They refused to murder the priests. Doeg, being an Edomite and not a Jew, was then assigned this butcher's task by Saul. He didn't hesitate a moment to murder the priest and their families. We read in the previous chapter where Doeg was detained before the Lord, but it didn't change his heart at all. Here is a man who did not fear God and who spoke in order to cause harm to the Lord's anointed. He must have known that what his master was saying was unjust and reckless and would amount to murder in the sight of God. But he must also have been attracted by the promise of promotion and reward, as Saul promised in his opening words. Will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? David in his psalm spoke of him as, "See the man who would not make God his refuge, but trusted in the abundance of his riches and sought refuge in his own destruction." God will break you down forever. He will snatch and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. Speaking half-truths amounts to lying. Even when the facts are spoken, it is a work of deceit if the motive is to cause harm or injury to others. Man looks at the face, but God looks at the heart. While David was speaking to his son Solomon about the construction of the temple in 1 Chronicles 28 verse 9, he said, "The Lord searches all hearts and understands every plan and thought." David was afraid of Saul, and he was betrayed into a lie by his fear. The fear of man brings a snare, but he who trusts in the Lord shall be kept safe. David readily acknowledges to Abiathar, the son of Ahimelech, who escaped the sword of Doeg, that he had caused harm to his family. But he also comforted him by saying, "Stay with me. Do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life. With me you shall be in safekeeping." Let us watch our words and the motive behind our words. We can sound truthful and factual, but speak with evil intentions. God sees through it and rewards us accordingly. David concludes his psalm by saying, in verse 8 and 9, "But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. I will thank you forever because you have done it. I will wait for your name, for it is good in the presence of the godly." God bless.